Hello, welcome. So I thought we would paint a mountain scene today, and I thought I would try a method that I saw on Paul Clark's YouTube channel. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna tape off a piece of 100% cotton paper. I do think this part is important, so if you have 100% cotton, use this for this technique. If you don't, just watch the video through and you can practice on some other paper. Although I do think that it's imperative for this technique to work to use the cotton. But let's do a little wash of a sky. And I just happen to have some purple here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix some rose into it to lighten it up, Quin Rose. And then I'm gonna grab a little bit of some other rose over here, Rose of Ultramarine. And I'm not doing this to call out certain colors that you should use or you should have, just so you know what I'm using. If you wanted to use those colors and you happen to have them, go for it. And I'm just grabbing some color that's sitting over here in this palette. And I'm just going to make a very quick sky. And all that I'm doing for this sky is dipping my brush in different colors at different swipes. Okay, so I rotate between the purplish color and then the red, and at this bottom part, I'll rinse off my brush mostly and just do that with water. So I'm just bringing down the rest in water, and that's it. I'm gonna leave it really simple. You know what, I might just drop in a little bit more purple here at the top. Just make it slightly more moody. Just slightly, like a slightly stormy sky. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dry this. I think I'm going to play with this purple. We'll keep this purple going on, whatever's in your palette. You can mix a little bit of indigo and a little bit of a red, crimson. You can use a straight purple if you have one you really like. I don't have a purple that I love, but I did just get some dioxazine purple that I do really like. So I can use some of that, which I have mixed over here. And I'm just gonna add that to that, since I already have it mixed. And I believe this is not straight dioxazine. It probably has some neutral tint in there, probably has something else, and use what you like. It doesn't have to look like mine. I'm just gonna draw a mountain line with my paintbrush. And I'm just kind of wiggling my hand a little bit so it comes out, you know, without trying too hard. And then I'm just going to take some water, some more paint, and get that not overly saturated, but definitely get some water in there and let it move around, right? And I'm gonna leave this messy, this for the foreground right here, okay? I'm gonna get this part nice and saturated-ish, right? All of this part. Then, now after I have this fairly flat-looking mountain, right? I need to add some depth to it. So, what you can do now is you can take some neutral tint if you'd like, some indigo if you'd like, something darker, and maybe just drop that in shadows where you think shadows might be. Now, don't get too worried about this. Don't think you have to know what side of the shadows are going to hit it. We're just playing here. We're experimenting, we're exploring, we're seeing what works and what doesn't work for us, okay? It all doesn't have to work for you. And it's just exploring. You can deal with the lighting issues and the shadows later if that's what you want to know where they should go for sure. I don't get too caught up in that. I don't paint realistic. If you follow me at all, you well know this. And so I like to just play and have fun and see where things take me. Let the paint kind of do what it wants. See, and it's so wet that it's already kind of dissipated, right? So you don't really see that as much. So I'm gonna go back in and drop some more. What you can do if you want to is take some straight up Quin Rose, not too much water, and just kind of almost, actually you could get more water, and then just kind of drop it in there and gain some light back in maybe those foothills of your mountain. So now you have a little bit of pink highlights going on in the water. If I just use plain water now, it'll push it all away. So now if I just drop, that was a pretty big drop. So just drop a few, maybe if you'd like to, down there at the bottom. You don't have to. You don't have to do any of this. It's just experimenting. And if I think maybe that got a little carried away, I can just drop more pigment in there and kind of, kind of blend it back in a little bit more instead of so much. Take it out. And again, I'm gonna go back here and just keep dropping a little bit more dark until I see that I like it. Now, what I want to do maybe, so I used blues, reds, rose. Let's take our indigo, straight indigo, and just get a little bit here on my palette. Let the purple mix with it just a little bit, and then I'm gonna just drop a few of those in there, okay? So really, you can't see it doing much now, but when it dries is kind of when you see more of this, right? It's so dark right now and wet that it's not showing you all that it is and can do at the moment, and that's okay. But dropping in some more here will add texture, will add depth, and will just kind of help give it more, right? Versus just a flat mountain, right? Mountains are not just one color. They're, 50,000 different colors really, right? And I'm just using 3 or 4 or 5. So really, you could drop in a lot more if you really wanted to. For the sake of this being a little shorter, let's just stop. Let's let this dry a little bit. So what I'm looking for right now is I can see a good sheen. And so if I see a good sheen, like if you have water on something flat and you draw your finger through it, it's just gonna rush right back to that spot where you separate the water, right? So what we're waiting for this to dry enough where if we etch into it, the water's not just gonna fall back in that trough. Instead, it's going to leave white space. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a cut up piece of card. This is just a gift card. You can use something else. You can use something like this with a sharp tip on it. You can use a paintbrush. Oftentimes, oftentimes paintbrushes will have maybe something like this on the tip, right? It's already angled. Can you see that? It's kind of clear, so it's hard to see. But it has a sharp edge, and then it has this kind of edge, so you can use that. You can also try to work with a palette knife. So what I'm going to show you, you can use all sorts of different tools. You can pick another tool that you like better, whatever your favorite way. And you can also, what I was thinking of also going to do was cutting this into 4 pieces or breaking it up with tape, a bigger piece of paper, and showing you all these methods. So maybe I'll do that another time. But for now, I'm going to demonstrate using a piece of a gift card or a cut up credit card. And while I'm talking, I'm waiting to see if this is drying. I'm leaning over to the side so that I can see the sheen. And it's getting drier here, but I still see a lot of paint, pretty heavily wet in that area at the top and this little side area. So my paper is buckling just a tiny bit. And that's also where you can see the paint sitting right in those little buckles, and that's okay. This is did I use bow hung? I did. I used bow hung paper, and Arches does the same thing. They both do it. So it doesn't make, necessarily one worse than the other if they do that. They'll buckle. If you didn't want the buckling, obviously you would work on a block. So a block is a piece of pad of paper that's all stuck together, right, with glue or some sort of adhesive all over the sides. And so that keeps your paper super, super flat. And it's actually very handy. Clearly, right? So now I can see the blue separating a little bit, and I can see the reds and all the pretty colors. I am still looking at that sheen. And I know we're not doing much, and I know I'm just talking a bunch, but I'm waiting for that sheen to drop down. Okay, for now, I think, see, I'm not an expert at this. Don't don't think I am. I've only watched a few videos where people do this. They have way better luck. I've never had great luck. Only one time. Isn't that funny? I've had luck one time doing this, and here I am wanting to demonstrate it for you. I just think it has such cool potential, and if it works for you, that would be amazing. It doesn't work for me, but I'm going to try anyway. So I'm going to take my edge of my card, and I'm going to play. I'm going to etch it down this mountain like it's the crags in the mountain, right? Is that what they're called? And I'm just going to wiggle it all around. I'm going to try not to be too specific. And I'm gonna take the sides of it, and see, most people are able to get white. I'm not getting white pulled up, and I don't know why. When I see everybody else do this for their rocks and for their mountains and everything else, I see all the pros, all the professionals get the white, and I'm not. So anyway, I don't know. I still don't think it's a fail. I think that it has potential. And see, I'm getting white there a little tiny bit. I got a little bit of white, and that was it. And I often get white when I use my stick. So I don't know why this technique. Oh, see, there I'm getting a little bit white. Maybe I'm just not doing enough pressure. Aha, okay. So I used my rounded edge of my card, and I'm using more pressure. And I'm actually kind of almost digging into the paper, which maybe I did that other time and I wasn't paying attention. So that's good to know. And I'm kind of wiping it off on my little cloth. I always keep a piece of cloth nearby. And so I'm wiping off the edge, so I'm not just putting that paint back in. There we go. Okay. See what's happening there? I can't tell you why those dark marks did that, and now I'm getting light. So it's nice to put the light back into the picture, in my opinion, into the piece, right? It's nice to have that light popping through. It makes the darkers darker and it makes the lighters pop, and it does a good thing. So I'm taking some more off the tops of these mountains in, effort that the light hits, and then maybe, if it was a snow-capped mountain, we would have light there as well. Okay, so this is actually working quite well. My card is not a true credit card, so it's actually getting bent up pretty well. It's more of a, some sort of compressed paper with maybe some sort of light plastic coating. I'm not sure what it is. It's an Amazon gift card. And so, I don't know, maybe that's part of it too. Maybe I should have used a credit card. It's really, really quite mushing. I don't know if you can see that, but it definitely mushed. And so that is actually helping me right now. It's the part that's soaking up the paint and giving me these markings. So I'm actually, let me look through the camera. Yes, look at that. Holy, you know what? I won't say it because I know some people have their kids watch, but holy moly. Let's say that, holy moly. That's kind of cool. Now, is it perfect? No. But as you know, if you know me, I don't go for perfection. That's okay. I don't need to. I don't want to. Not my style. All right. I like it. Now what I'm going to do, I only say gonna when I do these. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some green and I'm just going to give myself a foreground. You don't have to. You can leave it like we had it, and that's okay too. You don't have to do this at all, and I might mess it up by doing this. Just a little bit, nothing major. Then what I'm gonna do, I think, I'm gonna take a darker color, a darker green, and I'm going to, I hope I don't, I'm going to add trees. I am going to. If you've been around a while, I can't do anything without adding trees. Love my trees. So I'm gonna add a few in the wet, and then what I'm going to do is I'm gonna dry it and then add more. So sometimes, oftentimes, many times, pretty much all the time, I do like to do some stuff when it's partially wet. I like the bleeds, I like the chaos, I like the randomness, and I like the carefree, loose look where it's not so perfectly pristine and trying to be realistic. That's what it is. I'm not trying to be realistic, so I want that to reflect. And by using paints wet on wet, or even slightly wet, and letting them bleed and do their thing, I think that just kind of reiterates that. Okay, and now I just did a few. And, I'm just going to toss a few more, like maybe dark pieces down here so it has time to bleed before I dry it. And, nothing particular, nothing exact, just dropping and maybe adding a little like weed looking type pieces. And that'll dry and blur, so it won't even resemble anything really. And these trees that I already did, you don't even really see them anymore, right? So they just kind of blend into the background as maybe just giving it a base, right? So instead of now putting my perfect trees on top of something flat, they'll have just another layer back there. And I think that is what helps add, and that is what kind of elevates things sometimes. I'm not saying mine will be elevated, but I'm saying like it does in general. And I think that's something that was one of my turning points when I learned to kind of, accept those layers. I fought layers for a long time. I'll admit it. I did. I fought them. And I fought them hard. I just did not want to accept layers. I am going to take a tiny bit of orange, and I'm going to attempt to drop just a tiny bit of splatters in my foreground with just a different color. It doesn't have to be orange. You could use some ultramarine. You could use some yellow. You could use whatever you like. Just trying to get that consistency right with the water and the paint so that the splatters are coming off of this brush nicely. And you can use any brush. You just have to know what kind of brush does what. So a thin liner like this will give you nice small splatters, as long as you keep the paint and water ratio correct. If not, it can vary. Okay, I'm gonna dry for you. Okay, back after drying, and now I'm going to add, I do notice, obviously, I have this big white space over here. I was hoping to kind of fit a tree in there and then just leave it and let it be, I don't know, maybe it's a rock face, a face of a rock, right? maybe it's just something to help this one tree stand out, and that's okay. I'm gonna leave it. And now, obviously my trees are not going to be super, I'm gonna add some neutral tint. They're not going to stand out super a ton against this black, right? Or against this very dark purple. So like I said, I did add some neutral tint to make them pop from that. And, you know, I could have gone way lighter at the foreground of this mountain, and you can. So the great thing, honestly, about watching tutorials before diving in is you learn what all the don't do's are, right? Because oftentimes, especially for me, I know other artists do it as well, but often they're like, oh, well, if I had to do this again, I wouldn't do this, that, the other. And so often at the beginning, you'll hear people say, you know, hey, watch this video all the way through, and then, you know, and then try it. And I think I should probably maybe start saying that since my pieces are such kind of more demos and such sort of invitations to explore, that maybe you can learn from my explorations first and then be like, oh, you know what? I didn't like when Amber did that. You know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try it this way. And I think that's awesome. Learn from my mistakes, right? Make it easier on yourself. Learn from my way and do it your way. I'm just going to add a bunch more trees, and probably fast forward this for you so you don't have to watch me add a bunch of trees for the sake of time. Okay, so I'm just adding the last of the few trees, and I want to reiterate, I mean, I am using a liner size 0 to do these trees. And I know a lot of times people often ask me if I'll do a tree tutorial. There's so many out there, and this time I'm not going to, but try all your brushes. Try all the tree tutorials you can find. That's how I did it. I went over and over with them. I just kept doing them and doing them and doing them, trying all the different brushes, trying the brushes you don't think would even be a tree brush. Try the brushes that people say they love. Try the brushes that people say they hate. I've often found that I've loved brushes that people don't think are brushes that work. And you just never know what's going to work for you. Because this movement is such a tricky, quick one, right? You're trying to just do, you want to be fast and quick and kind of zigzagging back and forth between the two sides of the tree and trying to balance that out without being balanced, right? You want it to look natural, which isn't going to look perfect, which is going to look unnatural slightly for you. But in the grand scheme of things, you know these are all trees. Are they perfect replicated trees? Absolutely not. Do they look like the trees that I'm looking at in my backyard, which is literally a forest? The Brothers Mountain is behind me, and that's a giant mountain range, and there's just trees everywhere. And no, they absolutely do not look like the trees in my backyard. So we're not trying for that. We're just doing suggestive, okay? You know those are trees. You know. All right, and so actually through the camera, it looks a lot lighter than it does in person. So for me looking at it, it's very dark. And these tree lines are actually really dark too. But now stepping back and looking at through the lens, again, it looks actually much lighter, and I'm kind of enjoying that. I think after adding just these tiny little grass details at the bottom, just a little bit darkness, I can still see pops of orange. I'm gonna call it, and I'm going to stop. You could easily add birds. You could have a few soaring over here, a few soaring over there. I'm not going to do that today. I'm gonna untape. But here we have it. And just a simple mountain range with a few techniques. Till next time, bye.